Meanwhile, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is blaming Hamas, Hezbollah and Israel for civilian deaths in the Middle East. Speaking in Paris alongside Foreign Affairs Minister Mélanie Joly, Trudeau pleaded for peace as fear of an all-out war in the region reaches a boiling point. Trudeau called for all parties to lay down their arms and try to reach a two-state solution on the final day of the Francophonie summit, where the recent escalation in Lebanon has dominated talks.
We need to continue to hold Iran to account for its funding and organizing behind the scenes of Hamas, of Hezbollah, of the Houthis. We need to ensure that we're strengthening sanctions and response as Israel is legitimate in wanting to respond to Iran's recent missile attacks. But at the same time, we have to be mindful about not letting this situation get further inflamed, not allowing or seeing further escalation of violence or spreading of conflict to the region.
For more on all of this, I'm joined now by CTV military analyst, retired Major General David Fraser. Good to have you on today, sir. Thanks for taking the time.
Lindsay, good to be with you.
So when you look back over the last year and the impact on this conflict has been felt around the world, it can't be understated. Obviously, there's been conflict in this region for centuries, but what do you make of what we've seen over the last year?
Well, as we come up to the anniversary of 7th of October, this is probably our worst fears coming true, that on that heinous date where, thousands of, Israelis were killed and hundreds were captured, we feared that this could actually turn into a regional war, and it has turned into a regional war. Israel is now fighting Hamas, they're fighting the Houthis, they're fighting Hezbollah. Iran has fired and attacked Israel. The international community is almost impotent to try to stop this, but all our fears have come true. And so this is, in one sense, Israel is doing what they need to do. And the other sense is we still don't know what to do with Iran.
Yeah, there's been so much talk for so long about a wider conflict. As you say, you believe, it's here. We've seen that conflict between Israel and Iran, especially over the last couple of weeks. Do you foresee that wider conflict continuing to escalate with more countries involved?
I don't see any, anything less than an escalation right now, because, we are waiting to see what is Israel going to do in response to the Iranian attack, and they have to do something. The question is, they've got, a number of options going from military to economic to nuclear to regime. But what are they going to do and still leave options left over for what does Iran do after that? But this war is just getting bigger by the day. It's not getting smaller. And thousands of innocent people are being killed on both sides of the fence.
Mm-hmm. And we've seen, in these pro-Palestinian protests really around the world, calling for other countries to, get further involved to put a stop to this. We saw before we brought you in, the Prime Minister Justin Trudeau pleading for peace. Is this all other countries, especially G7 countries, can do to kind of stop this war, especially when you see what's been happening, particularly with so many innocent civilians?
Well, I think the international community has to ask and demand, a ceasefire, demand a de-escalation, and do exactly what our Prime Minister and Foreign Minister have said. But until such time as Israel feels that the threat is no longer imminent, this war is going to keep on going. And the problem that this war is also doing, it is actually ripping our own societies apart, because we are on different sides of the debate in many cases. And this war over the Middle East has actually had global effects already with, the populations that are on both sides of the discussion here. So this is something that has affected all of us in ways that none of us wanted. And the sooner that we find a diplomatic solution, and this is why the international community will continue to press, but that won't be taken seriously until Israel feels that they are safe again.
Well, yeah, and I mean, on the flip side of this, there's so many hostages that still have not been brought home to Israel. Do you think there's any hope left for those families in Israel that are waiting for their loved ones to come home?
My heart actually breaks for the families of the hostages and the families of who have lost loved ones. because right now the attention seems to be completely on Lebanon and no longer the main effort in Gaza, which means that those 100+ hostages don't have much hope or chance of finding a way out, because there's no reason why Hamas would give them up right now unless there was going to be a ceasefire, and there doesn't seem to be any discussions of a ceasefire in Gaza as long as we look at the fighting that's going in Lebanon, and Hamas fighters still fight Israelis. So no, it's not a good news story for the hostages.
Just before I let you go, one last question. I think everyone can probably agree that there's no end in sight soon in terms of the conflict, hoping we're all wrong on that front. But do you foresee an end? Because, so many people will argue that there's been conflict and tension here for centuries. And will there always be? Or do you think that we can all find a way out of this?
Well, I think that Lindsay, that comes down to leadership and the political leadership on both sides. And at some stage in the game, the Prime Minister of Israel will have to start to consider what does the end state look like, and then try to create the conditions so that he gets negotiations with the other side, such that they would agree to that. But until the other sides keep on fighting Israel, the Israeli Prime Minister is office bound to defend the Israelis, and this is the problem. But there will be some sort of ceasefire at the end. I don't think it's going to resolve the hundreds of years of fighting, but there will be a ceasefire at some stage, but no time soon, and there's no conditions that either side would agree to at this stage.
Okay. CTV military analyst, retired Major General David Fraser. Appreciate you having on today. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.